righty. Very good. Next up is Stephen Williams, and this is an excerpt towards the end of a piece entitled An American Family. And here you go, Stephen.
It's fall 2020, and I'm on a road trip with my 19-year-old kid, Aspen. We have a destination, Tahquamenon Falls in northern Michigan, but we don't have any route. We're just going to wing it. We left the city this morning, and now we're headed north. We find ourselves on an island in Lake Champlain. As the sun sets, we sit eating our dinner, watching the sun go down and feeling the mosquitoes come in. And Aspen turns to me and says, "This is amazing, Dad." It makes me so makes me so happy because Aspen has been distant lately, and so have I. And I just really want to reconnect with her. She told me that we're going to Tahquamenon because of a Sufjan Stevens song that she's obsessed with. And I listened to the song, and I don't understand the obsession because there are no words. It's an instrumental song. But I'm just going with the flow, and I want to make her happy. In the morning, we drive across upstate New York near the Canadian border, and I spot a sign for Dick's Emporium, 1,000 guns, 100 guitars. Like who wouldn't pull into that if you saw it? So we pull in, and I have this giant Tahoe I've rented, this huge SUV. And I pull in and park next to the pump, and Aspen goes inside to see what's up. And I'm a little worried about Aspen being upstate. This whole trip, I haven't said anything to her, but she's her own person. And she gets by fine in Chelsea and Manhattan where we live and in any other part of New York City. But I just fear that the way she presents herself will get her in trouble upstate. I pump the gas, it's going glug, 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 glug into this huge tank, just gallon after gallon after gallon. And I look up, and there's this giant solar array just on the other side of the fence. And it's looking at me, it's taunting me. I think of my grandmother's farm and the old gas pump she had on there, and it had a bell on it that sounded like a carnival bell. Every time a leader went through the pipe, it would ring, ding, ding, ding. And I loved sitting there watching that pump fill up the combine or the tractor. Gasoline was just so much more fun back then. I fill up the tank, it's probably like 500, 700 gallons. I have no idea. And I go inside, and on the way in, I run into Aspen coming out. She goes, "Dad, you're going to love this." I go in, and sure enough, there are 1,000 guns at least in cases all around this convenience store. They're all for sale. And up on the walls are these beautiful guitars, wooden guitars, mostly folk guitars, classical guitars. It's an extraordinary place. And I get my coffee, and I go to the register, and I look at the woman, and I think, my God, you look just like my grandmother used to look when I was a kid. She's my age. And then I realize I probably look like my grandmother looked when I was. She says to me, "Are you Aspen's dad by any chance?" And I was like, pull my head back, a little wary. I say, "Yeah." And she goes, "That's a wonderful child you have." I say, "Really?" She goes, "So thoughtful, so attentive, so curious. I just love him. I just love him." "Thank you," I say. I go back outside to the truck, and Aspen's spread out over this giant seat that she has, eating pink cotton candy, not a care in the world. And I say, "That lady in there, she loves you, Aspen." And Aspen goes, "I know." I say, "She called you he." And Aspen says, "Look, Dad, today I'm looking kind of boyish, so a boy I'll be. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it." We drive on across the barren fields. The corn stalks are just falling over. There are cars dead on the side of the road. It's really upstate. And we reach a town called Pulaski. And I want to go there just because of the name. And as we're driving down a hill towards the river, I see a shirtless man struggling to to pull and drag a 40-pound salmon with a rope up the sidewalk. The rope is digging into his back and he's straining against the rope, and this dead fish is just gliding along the concrete. And I know that guy's going to get home to his little house with that salmon, and his wife and his daughters are going to pounce on that fish and gut it and cut the head off and throw the innards out in the yard for the weasels, and they're going to cook it into 2 big salmon pies that are going to last for weeks. As we drive down the road across the river, I see a dozen other men down there fishing for their dinner. In the morning, we drive to Detroit. We have tandoori pizza in a Bangladeshi pie shop and find a hotel room. We sleep like logs. It's been a long drive. That morning, I wake up hungry for coffee. I go down out the door go down to the lobby to get some coffee for the 2 of us. And as I leave my room, the door across the hall opens and a little girl sticks her head out. She goes, "Are you my mom?" And I say, "No, no, I'm not your mother." She pulls her head back in and shuts the door. I go down to the lobby and I tell the clerk what just happened. And she goes, "Well, what did she look like?" And I said, "She looked like a little girl, like a little scared 4-year-old girl who was alone." I say, who would leave their kid alone in a hotel room? I get my coffees and I'm walking back down the hall, and it dawns on me, I left my kid alone in a hotel room. Not Aspen, but her sister Bolivia. She was 4 years old. We were riding in the back of a pickup truck up a dirt road high in the Andes Mountains. We came across a traffic jam, and it turns out there was a mudslide had closed the road. So we had the choice of spending the night there, maybe getting bulldozed over by another mudslide, or crossing through the mud to where a waiting school bus would take us to the nearest town. So I chose to take Bolivia, and I set her on the mud, and I stepped into it myself, and I sank down to my knees. It was way deeper than I thought. There were other people crossing. I pushed her ahead about 3 feet, pulled my legs out and moved up, and then pushed her ahead and pushed her ahead. And I did it again and again until we were in the middle of the mudslide and I saw a rivulet of water coming down. And I knew if that turned into a stream, we could get swept off the cliff. Near me, an older woman was stuck in the mud, and she called out, "Ayúdame, ayúdame." But I couldn't help her. I had to take care of Bolivia. I had to take care of myself. We made it across, and on the dry ground, I turned and looked, and I couldn't see her. I could only see other people. The bus took us to town. We found a hotel, completely covered with mud, head to toe. Bolivia took a shower, and I wrapped her in a blanket and put her in bed, and I said, "Do not go on the balcony. Do not answer the door if anyone knocks." And I went out to buy her some clothes. I was gone over half an hour. Aspen and I finish our coffee in the hotel room, and we take our stuff and go out to the truck. And in the parking lot, I see that little girl from across the hall. She's walking to her car with her mother. They're holding hands. And I think, Aspen would like to hold hands with her mother. I know Aspen would love to hold her hand. And then I think, is it the parents' fault when the kids suffer? Because, those parents, they had parents too. And those parents had parents. and on and on and on, definitely all the way back to the dinosaurs. So I'm wondering, did my great 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 grandfather, was he traumatized by a triceratops? I know my grandfather was traumatized, my father's father. It was probably 1915, around there. He was standing on the lawn of the courthouse in a small town in Kansas, watching his father give the 4th of July speech. And then his father took a breath and keeled over and died of a massive heart attack right in front of him. Probably 30 or 40 years later, that guy, my grandfather, who saw his father die, loaded up a car with my father, who was then 19, and they were going to drive from Kansas to Buffalo to see relatives. They drove all day and all night, total disregard for their health. They were drinking and smoking and taking amphetamines along the way. And they barreled through and they made it, and they pulled up to the house in Buffalo. And my father's father got out, walked to a chair on the lawn, and keeled over and died of a heart attack. About 40 years after that, I was driving to Marathon, Florida, about an hour outside, and I just had a strange feeling. I was going to see my father in the condo that he'd rented. When I got there, my stepmother answered the door where her face was ashen. It turned out my father had made an espresso at 10 at night, lit a cool cigarette, and keeled over with a heart attack. He lived, and I'm alive. I have a heart problem myself, but I'm alive. I'm fine. I've lived longer than any of the male relatives on my father's bloodline without having a heart attack. I'm a record setter. Aspen and I drive north a few hours, headed to these waterfalls. When we see a big billboard, it says "Gobblers of Water." Of course, we have to pull off and see what the hell Gobblers of Water is. We pull off and it's a restaurant, a turkey restaurant in the town of Water. Gobblers of Water. We go in and we have a lunch, which is a white plate with some white turkey meat on it and some mashed potatoes with white gravy and some lima beans and a sugar cookie for dessert. Aspen says, "I love America." And we get back on the road and head north. We cross the Mackinac Strait on the Mackinac Bridge and head into the American wilderness. There are bundles of firewood at each driveway for sale. We get to Tahquamenon Falls at dusk. The falls are tannic. They're amber and yellow and white. So beautiful, you wouldn't imagine it. And Aspen walks down the trail all the way to the edge of the falls, as far as you can get, to the spot right over the falls where you would go if you wanted to jump. And I watch her. She's been on my watch list for 15 years now. And I look at the water and it soothes me. And I think that water's fine and I'm fine. Everything works out in the end, I think. Everything works out for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.